Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, our dear viewers. Welcome to yet another beautiful show today. Welcome to Call to Activism Africa. This is our lively broadcast for today. We are hosting our comrade brother, Brian Kabeko from Kenya. Brian, welcome.
Hi, how are you? Thank you.
Yes, I'm fine, and thanks for joining us today. Ladies and gentlemen, our viewers, today at Call to Activism Africa, we are hosting our comrade brother, human celebrant, and a comrade based in Nairobi, Kenya at the moment. We shall be talking about humanist ceremonies in Africa, and specifically, we shall be looking at Kenya, East Africa. Now, straight away to the topic of today. My name is Kato Mukasa, your co-host with Linda Tilly, who is based in South Africa. She's having some difficulties with electricity outages, but we hope she'll be joining us in the moment. Now, back to Brian Kabeko. The viewers would like to know, who is this young man, handsome man, Brian Kabeko? Can you please tell the viewers a little bit about Brian Kabeko?
Thank you, Kato, and thank you for hosting me once again on this lovely show. My name is Brian Kabeko. I'm from Kenya. Currently, I'm in Nairobi, but I'm usually in Kilifi. So, Brian is a humanist. I'm a passionate humanist from Kenya. I am also an activist. Most of my activities are centered around human rights activities. I'm also a certified celebrant in Kenya.
Brian, your speaker is breaking. Your speaker, we don't get some of the words.
Sorry, am I audible now?
Yes. Can you please repeat a bit, because I lost you along the way? Can you please repeat for the benefit of the viewers?
So, my name is Brian Habeko. I am a Kenyan citizen by birth. I'm also a humanist and a humanist celebrant who is currently based in Kenya. Aside from that, I'm also a youth advocate and a human rights activist, because most of my activities are centered around human rights activism and youth empowerment. While advocating for human rights, we are also advocating for the progress of nationalism and secularism in Kenya. I think some of the organizations that I do work with, so we are familiar with, I work with Kenya Humanists, I also work with Atheist Society of Kenya, and we also collaborate with Kenya Humanist Alliance in our...
Brian, work on your speaker, work on your audibility. Still, I'm losing you. I hear the words, but the volume is very low. May you please work on your audibility issue, sound.
Okay, just a moment.
Yeah.
Are you able to hear me now clearly?
Yes, there you okay. If you can maintain that, everyone will be able to listen in very well.
Okay, I think let me just start by introducing myself once again.
Yes. Mm.
I think this time round I'm audible.
Yes.
Yeah, so my name is Brian Habeko. I am a humanist based in Kenya. I am also a human rights activist and a youth advocate. I do take part in youth empowerment programs, those that are launched by the government and the non-governmental sector. I'm also a certified humanist celebrant who is based in Kenya. I do officiate humanist ceremonies. For those who are meeting me for the first time, I'm also a founding member of Kenya Humanists. Kenya Humanists is an organization that advocates for secularism and humanism in Kenya. Of course, we do collaborate with other organizations that have similar objectives to us. So basically, I'm a humanist and I advocate for humanism here in Kenya, and not just Kenya, but Africa as a continent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian. For the benefit of the viewers, since we are talking about humanism today, may you please kindly tell the viewers, what do you understand when someone says humanism? What is humanism in a nutshell?
Personally, to me, I have a different understanding of what humanism is. I do understand and acknowledge that there are so many definitions as to what humanism is. But from my point of view, humanism is a way of life that embraces people from all beliefs by focusing on the human values. Um, this is a kind of life that focuses on human values rather than specific beliefs of the individual. So I would say that humanism is a way of life that prioritizes the well-being of human beings over cultures, traditions, and religious beliefs. That's my simplest understanding as to what humanism is.
Yes. In other words, you are also telling the viewers that humanism put the humanity first before gods, because we are talking about secularism. Now, if the viewers want to understand this in a setting like Kenya, how do you explain to them humanism and how humanism works practically so that they can be able to understand? If someone is in Kerifi or is in Mombasa or is in Nairobi or wherever, and you want to understand humanism from a perspective of a person living in Kenya, how best would you explain that here is a humanist and this is a humanism? In other words, can you expand more on what it is for an African to understand what humanism is?
From a layman's language, if I
Mm.
am to explain what humanism is, I'll use a practical example because humanism is all about humanity. And
Mm.
therefore, if I'm to depict a humanist value or a principle, I'd simply tell this person that humanism tells you that you should put human beings before anything else. A good example is if your culture or religious belief tells you that you should do this and this, and whatever your culture is demanding from you is causing harm in some way or another to the next person, then you're not going to do that because you value this human being more than you value your traditions and cultural whatevers. So, in other words, whatever you are doing, be it guided by your culture or religious traditions, you are worried or you put in mind that this action that I'm doing is not going to cause harm to the next person just because I'm trying to fulfill my religious or cultural obligations. So I put the human first before anything else that I'm supposed to do. So if it's something that's going to either undermine someone's fundamental human rights or cause harm to anybody, I'm not going to do it because it's it's not going to it's not something that is progressing humanity rather than it's undermining humanity because it's causing harm.
Yes. Again, That's a very good way of explaining humanism to a layman in Africa. I would like to expand more on this because we want to use this platform to market secularism, market humanism, and of course, market humanist ceremonies. But we cannot talk about humanist ceremonies without allowing our viewers to understand what humanism is all about. Now, I would like to pick it from where I've stopped and add a little bit that in Africa, we are highly, very religious people. Highly, very, very religious people. In fact, uh, 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 one of the Kenyan scholars, I think Mbiti was a Kenyan scholar, John Mbiti, uh, said that Africans are highly, highly religious. Now, being religious can be married to one believing in deities, believing in gods. And in Africa, we know it for a fact that many of our people believe in a multitude of gods. Before the coming of the Europeans and Christianity, the Arabs and Islam, and all these other forms of religion, Africans were religious already. In fact, we simply added on other religions. Now, what we need to stress so that viewers can clearly understand is that a humanist does not put these gods first. Now, I would like you to explain from that point of view, because when you give it a historic perspective, we do understand that Ubuntu is an African concept where we say you are because I am because you are. We are one. We are interdependent. We are interconnected. We support each other to become better. Now, Ubuntu, in simple version, is the humanism we are talking about today. Now, how do you tell someone in Kenya that a person who is humanistic is not a person who is God-fearing? How do you explain the demarcation, the difference between a religious person and a humanistic person? I would like you to bring that difference clearly so people can understand where we are coming from when we now talk about humanist ceremonies. The difference
Thank you.
between someone who is believing in God, because we used to have what we call religious humanists, and we no longer have them today. So we need to have that difference coming out clearly for your viewers to know, oh, these are humanists. These are not Satanists, but these are humanists.
Thank you, thank you. I think that's where the confusion usually comes in, because most people believe that humanists are just not so different with the religious people. But here it is. A humanist is quite different from a religious person, because a humanist draws their morality not from gods or any god, but they draw their morality from a secular perspective. Everything that a humanist does, it's guided by humanist principles such as empathy, reason, and compassion. So the easiest way to differentiate between a humanist and a religious person, they draw the morality from God. Everything they do is theocentric. You'll hear them telling you that God forbids us to do this and this. So they're not doing that just because uh, they feel it's a good thing to do that. They're doing it because it's against their religious doctrines. But for a humanist, every action and every word that is spoken, there is it's based on empathy, reason, and compassion. If I'm doing this, I look at the consequences that this action is going to come in the long run. Am I doing it for the goodness, or am I just doing it for the sake? So humanists they draw their morality from a secular perspective, and they are guided by empathy, reason, and compassion. So everything that a humanist does is informed by humanist values. While on the other hand, a religious person, they simply draw their morality from God. Everything that they do is guided by their religious doctrine, Bibles, Quran, or whatever. But for we humanists, we don't do that. We look at the larger picture of it. If I'm doing something, then it's something that's going to bring progress in the community, and it's something that is meant to uh, propel the progression of humanity.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It is becoming more and more and more clearer. We are explaining to our viewers the difference between a humanist and a religious person or any other person. We do not believe in any supernatural powers. We do not believe in deities. When I talk about deities, I mean gods. There are more than one god. One god. In fact, we have about 4,200 religions and gods. Gods do not end on Allah and God and Jesus and Buddha and all that kind of. There are so many other gods. So humanists, as we say, we do not believe in extra-natural, extraordinary beings. Call them gods, call them spirits, call them all that you want to call them. We do believe in things that can be proven. We do believe in science. Someone will say, don't even use the word believe, because belief also has its own connotations. So humanists are secular people. Now, this is where we are coming from, explaining today's topic, human ceremonies in Africa. Now, the guest we have in our studio today, Brian Kabeko, is a trained human celebrant, and today we're going to be talking about human ceremonies in Africa with special attention to Kenya. But I will give it a background for the viewers to understand. In Africa, we have got a number of trained celebrants in the following countries. Of course, Kenya, we have trained celebrants. We have them in Uganda. We have trained celebrants in Rwanda. We have them in Nigeria. We have them in Ghana. We have them in Malawi. We have them in Tanzania and South Africa, and a number of other countries where we have already got people trained to participate as human celebrants. Zambia, Zimbabwe, we have human celebrants. Now, this is where we want to go, Brian. The viewers would like to know who are human celebrants and what do they do. Let us talk about that.
Thank you. But first, before they understand who a humanist celebrant is,
Yes.
they have to understand what is a humanist ceremony.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
it all begins from there.
Mm.
So a humanist ceremony is an unreligious ceremony that is focused on significant life events and milestones. These milestones could be graduation, could be marriage, anniversaries, weddings, and so on. So they focus on these significant life events and milestones from a secular and inclusive perspective.
Yes.
And these ceremonies, they are officiated or celebrated by a professional who is called a humanist celebrant. So humanist celebrants celebrate or officiate humanist ceremonies. They don't just officiate any ceremony, because you can't find a humanist celebrant in church or in the mosque. So that's the basic definition of who a humanist celebrant is. And these celebrants are trained. You have to be accredited or certified for you to officiate or celebrate any ceremony. You don't just come from anywhere and you claim to be a celebrant. There is a specific procedure that is followed for somebody to qualify as a celebrant.
Very, very impressive there, Brian. And we can see your certificate that qualifies you as a celebrant. Brian Kabeko, ladies and gentlemen, is a certified human celebrant trained by people within Africa and people in Europe, specifically Scotland, where he has been able to undergo a training that qualifies him as a human celebrant. So as we can see on that very screen, Brian Kabeko satisfied the requirements to become a human celebrant and was trained by professionals across the globe that empowers him and qualifies him to work in the shoes of a human celebrant. So, ladies and gentlemen, to become a celebrant, you simply have to go through a training. Do not simply go and have anyone without a training to be a celebrant. Our celebrants across Africa are trained by us, are trained with our support of our partners, and we'll make sure that they have the ethics, they have the skills to handle a ceremony. Now, going back to you, Brian Kabeko, about the ceremonies. We have seen the training and all this. Now, people would like to know what makes a human ceremony special? What makes it unique? Because we have grown up, my background is into the Catholic Church. I was born into the Catholic family. In fact, my mother wanted me to be a priest. And at the age of 12, I refused and stopped going to church. But I used to see priests officiating on weddings. Today, I see pastors, I see reverends. Or when you go to the state, we see the registrars conducting ceremonies. Now, we would like to know, the viewers would like to know, what makes a human celebrant special? What makes a human ceremony different from the rest of other ceremonies?
Well, a humanist ceremony is quite a unique ceremony, and I think people must be asking themselves, what's the difference between having a humanist ceremony and the normal kind of ceremonies that we are used to in church, mosque, and so on. So here's the thing. Humanist ceremonies, they're special because these are personalized and customized ceremonies. They're usually personalized to bring out things or experiences that mean a lot to the individuals, because a humanist ceremony emphasizes on the values and principles that guide these individuals who don't follow. First of all, let's begin here. A humanist ceremony, they are quite different from the religious ceremony because they are personalized and they are customized such that they bring out the best impression of the experiences that individuals have undergone through their lives. So these are ceremonies that are centered on the personal life experiences of these people that are being involved in this ceremony. So if it's let's say if it's a wedding ceremony, this wedding ceremony will be customized and personalized such that they aim to bring out your personal experiences in life and to incorporate things that value and matter in your life.
Brian,
And yes,
the viewer would like to know what you mean by personalized, because when I go to church, it's about me. When a pastor is conducting a wedding, it's about me, it's still personal. So what is it that you mean when you say they are personalized? In fact, sometimes with the word tailor-made. So what do we mean? How unique is this personalized ceremony we're talking about? The person listening to you would like to know so that they can be able to understand.
In the simplest explanation possible, I will refer to humanist ceremonies as bespoken kind of ceremonies. You know, when I say that they are personalized and customized, I mean that these ceremonies have been they are meant to highlight special moments in your life, things that matter a lot in your life, or the people that matter a lot in your life. Because even when we are preparing for a humanist ceremony, we do engage you and we try to interview to find out that how would you want this ceremony to be? Who do you want to be involved in this ceremony? What do you want to be done? What do you want to be included and what do you want not to be included? So it's not just a, a default ceremony that is it just happens. So it differs from one person to another, and different people have different things that mean a lot in their lives. What you find special could be not special to somebody else, because you'll find somebody he wants specific traditional aspects to be included in that ceremony, because these traditional aspect means something to their life. So it's something that is just tailored to your personal experience, what you want to be included, what you want to be changed, and so on, because you are the person who is having this ceremony, not the celebrant. My job is to make sure that whatever it is that you want to be included in that ceremony should be included. And most importantly, it should focus on your life experience, personal life experience, not just a generalized experience. So if we are doing an anniversary for you, so we are going to highlight the moments that you underwent through until you reach that milestone.
Yes, yes, because you say it's all about you. For
Yeah.
example, I would explain that more to our viewers that when you go to church and it's a reverend father, it's a priest, it's a pastor doing the officiating, the pastor has a written script. The vows, for example, are standard as we know them from the Christian point of view. But when it's a human celebrant doing your wedding, for example, the couple have the powers, have the honors to decide which words would be said to make their vows. Is it not so?
It's true.
Yes. Now, when I choose the words you are going to say to form my vows, it means it is about me. It means I make the choice. Brian, I would like you to explain also to the viewers what a celebrant does to make this ceremony unique, to make this ceremony personal or tailor-made. What are the processes that we are going to go through to ensure that this ceremony is personalized? Are there processes you go through with a couple to ensure that you listen to them, to ensure that you get exactly words from them, exactly the ceremony is all about them? Because someone is going to tell you, why don't I simply go to a registrar? Yes, I'm godless. Why should I come to a human celebrant? I better go to a registrar. So I would like you to explain more about the uniqueness, what makes this ceremony more unique, more lovely than any other form of a ceremony.
Uh-huh. Well, to put a humanist ceremony in place is not just a walk in the park, as many would have assumed, because there are some procedures that as a celebrant you are supposed to follow, so as to make this ceremony as humanistic as possible. So here is what I'll take a personal experience uh, on the ceremony that I've done before previously.
Mhm.
So if I've been approached by a client who wants to have a humanist ceremony, what I do, I schedule first a meeting with the client so that I get to understand and to know what he or she wants out of this wedding ceremony. And it's through that meeting that I'm able to single out special things that this couple wants to be done, and just the way they want it done. And uh, uh, other than that, I also take time and interview close family members and get to know much more about the couple, not from the couple, but also from the family members. And that way I'm able to establish a connection to what these couples told me and from what their family members have told me. So I'm able to connect the two. And while having these engagements with the couples and their family, I'm also able to understand and note out things that are special to them, because some you find that some still embrace their traditional cultures, and they might want such aspect to be included in the ceremony, but you won't be able to know them if you're not going to have a conversation with these people. So you get to know them, you get to understand what they want, how they want it to be done, who they want to be included in that particular ceremony, what you want they want it to be included in that ceremony, and what they don't want to be included. So after mm, engagements with them, you're able to come up with a list, and that list is able to guide you in collaboration with the wedding partners, so that you organize a wedding that reflects exactly what was in the mind of this couple.
Yes. When you talk about a list, do you mean a script?
Uh, Not really a
Or you are
script.
talking about a schedule?
Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
when you get to meet them, you're
Mm.
obviously going to take notes. If they're going to tell you that they want this and this, so you're going to record it down. If it's the vows, how they want their vows to be written, you're also going to write it down, so that when you're finally going to sit down to prepare a wedding script, you make sure that you capture things as exactly as they wanted it to be. Know that when it reaches during the wedding day, the vows are different from what they told you. So this meeting is to help you understand what this couple wants, and how they want their wedding to be. So after you've met them, it becomes easier for you to connect the things that you gathered, information that you gathered both from them and their close family friends. So after you've gathered this information is going to help you to work closely with the wedding planners, so that you come up with something that is exactly as they wished it to be, not different. And that's what makes it special, because I'm not sure whether religious weddings, somebody has the opportunity to customize their own weddings, because
No.
different churches have different ways of carrying out their wedding ceremony. So if you're a member of the Catholic Church, you're just going to have your wedding exactly the way the Catholic Church does their wedding. But from the humanists, it's quite different. If you want us to include traditional attires in your wedding, we're going to do that. If you want us to make a vow that is quite different from how you see it, we are going to do it. If it's including traditional aspects, we are going to include it, so that during the wedding you can have a chance to appreciate your traditional and whatever. So that's what makes humanist ceremony special.
Thank you so much, Brian, for that explanation. Ladies and gentlemen, those viewing us today and those who are going to be viewing this show in many days to come, we are emphasizing that secular ceremonies or humanist ceremonies are secular ceremonies, are ceremonies without gods. If you're not religious and you have been wondering how we are going to be able to have a marriage, how we are going to be able to have your funeral done, or a funeral of a secular person, a baby naming kind of ceremony and all that, here we are. We're talking about human ceremonies in Africa. It's possible to do a ceremony without a reverend father, without a bishop, without a priest. Ceremonies that don't talk about gods, don't put any other things as important as the person that owns the ceremony. Now, Brian, we're talking about the uniqueness of these ceremonies. Of course, people would like to know, where exactly can you have these ceremonies? Are they specific to a place? Are they specific to certain regular rituals and all that? Are they supposed to be done indoors, outdoors? What is the uniqueness? Can we please talk about more about the uniqueness of these very specific human ceremonies?
Um, Despite humanist ceremonies being open to customization and personalization and so on, there are specific guidelines that the preparation of these ceremonies should follow so that they be considered a humanist ceremony. And of course, there are places that these ceremonies cannot take place. Places like the church, the mosque, bars, and so on. But a humanist ceremony, the goodness that comes with this ceremony is that you're not limited to a specific place that you're supposed to hold this ceremony. You can have this ceremony at a park, you can have them at a garden, a social hall, and every other place that is quite accommodative and it's friendly. So you don't have to worry about your venue, provided you get the right venue. And I've listed some of the places that you're not supposed to have these weddings, because I don't expect a humanist wedding to be happening in a church. That won't be a humanist wedding. And once you've identified a good venue, because throughout this preparation, there'll be a celebrant by your side to help you and guide you on where to pick your venue. He or she will be able to advise you that this is not a good place, this is not a good place, and eventually they'll help you get the correct venue. Now, after picking on a venue, then we embark on the preparations for this wedding. And here is where things have to be followed strictly, because there are some of the things that should not be incorporated in a humanist wedding. If they're incorporated there, then it ceases to be a humanist wedding. And that's why it's important to have a celebrant who is certified, somebody who understands the guidelines that a humanist wedding should follow. So yeah, you're going to identify some of the aspects that you want to be included in your ceremony. And when you'll be meeting your celebrant, they're going to guide you. Even if it's the traditional aspects that you want to be included in the ceremony, they are going to advise you that we can have this incorporated in your wedding, but not to this extent. Because some people also want prayers, for example, the Lord's Prayer to be included in their weddings. And of course, they can be included, but there's a way that we work out on having these things in your wedding. So humanist ceremonies cannot just happen anywhere. They are, they are limited to some places. And there are some things that we are following, like if you are, like I said, the traditional aspects, the religious aspect that you wanted to be included, and then among other things, you have and these are traditional and religious aspects. They come in form of songs and rituals, because some cultures will find that there's that tying of hands. Some want the Lord's Prayer to be said. Some want uh, certain songs to be sung, and those are some of the things. And that's why it's very important that you get a celebrant whenever you want a humanism, because they're able to guide you step by step from to until your wedding is successful. So a humanist ceremony cannot just happen anywhere. They are limited to some places, and there are also some things that are limited not to be included into the humanist ceremony, as I said.
Thank you so much, Brian. That is the lovely. I would like to simply give you um, my own experience, of course, which is outside Africa. Of course, I know that in a setting that is African, you won't be allowed to have a non-religious ceremony in a church building. I'm talking about a church building, because in Africa we are still very conservative, and the region is at the top notch. I agree with you on that, but I should give you my own experience in Europe, where the churches have been abandoned and they are empty. As I speak now, many humanist ceremonies are done within the church buildings. In fact, I have attended some within the church buildings. But why? Because the church buildings were abandoned long ago. People no longer use them. They are empty. I've been to England, I've been to Scotland, and attended weddings, funeral ceremonies in church buildings, buildings that were churches and still have the crosses and all that, and all the regalia of a church. So in Europe, where religion is becoming part of history, where people are getting less and less interested in going to church, church buildings have been turned into casinos, into bars, into schools, into backpackers, into hotels, including public places where you can go and say, I want to hire this place for a humanist ceremony. So I'm not saying it is happening in Africa. I will just give you an example that we haven't reached there in Africa yet, but maybe time may come when also church buildings in Africa become vacant or idle, but not now. So, but to add more on that, for our viewers, I would like them to understand that humanist ceremonies are ceremonies without God. If you are agnostic, if you are atheist, if you are humanist, if you don't believe in gods, don't identify as a Muslim, you are not Christian, you are not this and that, you are fit to have a human ceremony. Because we want a ceremony where no one is going to say, may we praise Allah for this. You don't believe in Allah, you don't believe in Jesus Christ, but you want to have a ceremony. Now, my friend Kabeko Brian, we would like you to briefly explain to the viewers the different types of human ceremonies that have been trying to do, so that they can understand that it's not about marriages only, but also a number of other ceremonies. May you please take us through what other ceremonies do celebrants in Africa celebrate, officiate on?
Thank you, Kato. What people need to understand is that just like religious ceremonies, humanist ceremonies comes in different categories. We have a category of namings. Here is where we are giving a newborn. We're organizing a ceremony where we are naming a newborn. Similarly, namings could be seen as birthdays, because here in Kenya, we call them birthdays. So when you are going to celebrate the naming of a given baby, we call it a birthday. And the second category is wedding ceremonies. The first wedding ceremony was humanist wedding ceremony was done in Kenya by my colleague Cyrus Wanjohi. That was 2019. You can see the pictures, they are there. Cyrus is also a colleague. The third ceremony is anniversaries. And these anniversaries are quite broad. It could be a wedding anniversary. You could be celebrating a wedding anniversary. It could just be an anniversary celebrating your union, not officially married, but you've been together. It also could be an anniversary celebrating the death of a loved one, somebody who passed long time ago, but you keep on remembering them, or they could be called memorials. And then the last one is funerals, where you are grieving about the passing of your loved one and giving him the last rite of passage. But it goes beyond funerals, because we also have graduations. Graduation can also be incorporated in humanist ceremony. We also have, it's not limited to those, because we are trying to capture significant life events. Somebody could have been suffering for a very long time from a certain illness, and now he or she has recovered. So they decide to have a ceremony. That can also be a humanist ceremony.
Mm, mm,
We could have one that brings people together. Like here in Kenya, we are organizing a certain ceremony on October. We are going to celebrate a certain society for finally being registered by the government, and we are hoping that that ceremony is going to be humanist. So it's just the special events that happens that we celebrate in the humanist way. It doesn't have to be limited to those four. So it just depends. It could be circumcision. We could also make it
mm.
celebrate in a humanist way.
I think I love that. I love your versatility. I love your creativity. I love the life you are bringing, the different aspects of ceremony. Because honestly, ceremonies are beyond marriage. Ceremonies are
Yeah.
beyond birthdays. Ceremonies are beyond death. Ceremonies are everywhere, a part and parcel of our day-to-day living. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see the photos displayed on the screen. Those are uh, that's the human ceremony, which was done in Kenya in 2019. And as you can see, the couple is happily married under what we call a humanist ceremony. And the gathering was good. And I can tell you, I was part of that ceremony. I was part of the audience. I did recite the poem on that ceremony. Basically, in the human ceremony, you can have a section, a segment where people can come and recite poetry if they want poems. That is me there with the couple. I was not the celebrant. The celebrant was Silas Wanjohi, but of course, I was there, and you can see we are at the beach. That is the celebrant Silas Onyuhi, and that is our couple, Daniel Beaton and the lovely bride. Now, these are human ceremonies, and as you can see, we are out and about at the beach, at the water, on the sand, and everything was fine. And that was a ceremony. And we did have a nice time in Kenya having this humanist ceremony there. So, what makes these ceremonies unique is that you can have them in places where other ceremonies may not be taken. You are not going to see a Catholic wedding on a beach because the Father says, "You must come in the house of the Lord." And the humans are saying, "Please let me be. I can be at the beach, as you can see the couple. I can be anywhere. I can be in the gardens. I can be in the forest. I can be on the top of a mountain or somewhere on the footsteps of a mountain. I can be anywhere that we want because a human ceremony is all about you." And I want to thank you so much, uh, Daniel, Brian Kabeko, for explaining this very lovely for our viewers. Now we are going to ask you. I'm going to ask you the last part of the questions because people would like to know uh, how do we contact celebrants in Africa, and specifically being in Kenya. How do people reach out to you? And first of all, what are the requirements for someone to qualify as a person who can officiate their ceremonies on? Because I believe not everyone is going to come and say, "Oh, I have my money. Can you please be an officiant on my ceremony?" I think you have to be with the criteria to ensure that you are having the right people to be able to celebrate with them. So, may you please take the viewers through. Of course, giving us your addresses, your offices, how you can be contacted, and who are the people specifically that you are looking at to be part of this movement, also to be able to become the clientele that can be able to come to you and have work done with you.
Thank you for asking such a good question. As celebrants, we are guided with specific principles. You can call them code of conduct because they help us to determine who we are going to officiate a ceremony for and who we are not, and how we're also going to conduct ourselves in this profession of celebrancy. Because celebrancy is just a profession like any other, and in every profession, there's principles of ethics that should be followed. It's not just something that you handle like no, it's not like a tout business. Now, if somebody wants to have a humanist ceremony, let me be specific to Kenya, for example. First of all, you have to make a contact with your preferred celebrant. You go in the internet, you do a research, you get to know who are the celebrants that are available for you in Kenya.
Do you have a
Because
website, for example?
currently we don't have a website, but we do have a page. It's called Brighter Ceremonies Kenya. So when you go to Facebook and you search Brighter Ceremonies, you're able to find us there, and you're able to make an inquiry or book an appointment with us so we can schedule something and get to listen to you. So you first have to find your preferred celebrant. In Kenya, I think we are about 4. Apart from me, we have Dan Sodhiambo, who is currently based in Kisumu. We have Cyrus Wanjohi, he's based in Nairobi. Then we have Semakula Mukibi, I think he's also based in Nairobi. So depending on whoever you
We also
pick
have
as you...
counsel. We have a lawyer who is a celebrant, K.
Sorry, I haven't heard
I have
about
a
you.
list of the celebrants in Kenya. There are more than that. I'll give you the list. We
Okay.
have Counsel K, who's a lawyer, but also a celebrant trained in the 2019-2018 batch and others. Yeah.
Yeah, so after picking on your favorite celebrant, you have to contact them. So different celebrants have different contact addresses and different way of reaching out to them. And once a celebrant receives your request, he or she is able to book an appointment with you, because we can't just turn you off until we're able to listen to you. So after listening to you, then we are able to meet, and then we're able to discuss on why have we chosen this humanist marriage, this humanist ceremony, be it a wedding, be it a funeral, and so on. And then after we get to understand why you decided to pick on a humanist ceremony, then we're also going to make contact with your immediate family members and get to also understand their own views about this particular choice. Because we don't want a scenario whereby we are planning or a ceremony here, but your family isn't involved. And then at the end of it all, it becomes a dramatic scene. So we involve your family, immediate family members. We get to understand their stand on this. Once we come to an agreement and they also agree with your decision to have a humanist ceremony, then the preparations for this ceremony kicks off. We now start interviewing you for the purpose of the ceremony. And after our interviews, we are able to point out on specific things that you want in your ceremony, and that whatever we get from the interviews that we do with you, it's also going to inform us on what you're going to involve in writing the script, be it a funeral or be it a wedding. So there's a process we follow, and from our end as celebrants, there is a code of conduct that we are guided by. We don't just... And as we are following those processes, we're also having a checklist on our code of conduct and our principles. If this ceremony, if we have already done due diligence, we have a check. We know that, okay, this ceremony is okay. After doing the interviews and so on, we see that and make sure that the wedding meets all the criteria that is there for it to qualify to be a humanist ceremony. If by chance during our interviews with you and the families we feel that something is not right, we also have reserved the right to tell you, no, we can't do this. This is against my principles and code of conduct as a celebrant. Try somebody else, because there must be order in every profession. So the client must also uh, collaborate well from his side, and I will also collaborate from my side. So basically, that's how we do it, so that we get a ceremony going.
Thank you so much, Brian. That's lovely. Ladies and gentlemen, viewers, of this very interesting show. We have been talking about humanist ceremonies in Africa, and we are saying in a nutshell that these are ceremonies without gods. If you are not religious like myself, if you don't have any belief system in you, but you want to have a wedding done, you want to have a funeral done, you want to have a baby naming, you want to have there are even elopement ceremonies. I mean, there are so many types of ceremonies. You want to have an adoption ceremony. You got a baby, you got a child into your family, you want to celebrate they are joining your family. We are talking about adoption, naming, name changing ceremonies. There are quite a number of ceremonies. We are simply saying, please, we can do these ceremonies in Africa. We can have a wedding without reverends, without fathers, without priests intervening, praying for you, but we have it and it's done and everything goes smoothly in the most legal way possible in your setting. You have a ceremony, you become happy. Please, we are emphasizing that you can get celebrants across Africa. You can get them in South Africa. You can get celebrants in Uganda, in Kenya, in Tanzania, in Rwanda, in Zambia, in Zimbabwe. You can get them in Ghana and Nigeria and Malawi. We have these celebrants well trained to take you through your ceremony and without having the interference of gods in it. The ceremony is personal, it's all about you and yours. Brian, as we conclude, we have 4 minutes to conclude. I would like you to give us your parting shots. What is it that you want to stress as we live, as we live for we end this show? We are parting shots, Brian, on human ceremonies in Africa and specifically in Kenya.
From where I stand, I think that there is so much that should be put in place in the case of humanist ceremonies, because as celebrants, we are facing quite a lot of challenges in not just marketing, but also officiating these humanist ceremonies, because there is that social stigmatization. People don't understand what humanist ceremonies are. They're not even aware that somebody can have a humanist ceremony. So it becomes quite hard for us to even market these ceremonies, because people don't understand. There is that how do you call it? Is it ignorance or what?
Oh,
And then
ignorance. People don't know that you
yeah,
exist.
they don't know, because when you tell them that there is something called a secular ceremony, here in Kenya, people believe that if you're not religious, then you are demonic.
Yeah.
So anything that does not uh, abide to religious principles, it's demonic. So that's one of the challenges that we're facing. And then another thing is awareness. We need, I think we really need to pull up our efforts, celebrants who are here in Kenya and also Africa globally. We need to come together and start creating awareness about humanist ceremonies, because if we don't reach out to these people out there, they definitely are not going to know what humanist ceremonies are. And if that's happened, then humanist ceremonies are never going to be popular here in Africa, just like in the UK and these other countries. And then there is another thing about the legal framework. I think we should also cooperate with the policy makers, so that any legal barrier that is there that can affect human ceremonies, it needs to be looked at, so that it becomes uh, a smooth practice. Because most of the clients, the moment you start telling them that, before we have this ceremony, we again have to request permission from the office of the social work, so that they recognize this, or you have to go through the AG first, get a marriage certificate. So they give up. They see that that process is tiresome. So somebody just resort and says, let me just go to the church. It's quite easier. I'll just get a pastor and do it, because I don't have to wait for the registrar to do this and this. And then, it's quite a process. And then there's also another thing. I think this issue of secularism, it's something that can help us promote humanist ceremonies in Kenya. If we are able to advocate much more for secularism, then we are going to make these ceremonies popular, because we're even facing competition from religious institutions. These institutions that are also offer alternative wedding ceremonies, they are competing us. And Kenya being a country that is it's really based on religion, it becomes hard because even the government is on their side. So you find yourselves you're on your own because there is no one to support you. The government that is supposed to support you is also undermining you, forgetting that secularism is also enshrined in our constitution. So it becomes a challenge, and nobody wants to be involved with something that is controversial to the government because they fear reprisals. So it's quite a challenge, but I know if we come together as celebrants in Africa, then the advocacy is going to be easier, because one voice can't make a difference. But if we are 2, 3, or more together, then definitely they are going to hear us out. But so far, I think it's a good progress that we are doing. And from the circle that I'm in, people are beginning to appreciate humanist ceremonies, because there's also that emergence of secular organizations in Kenya, and these secular organizations consist of human beings who are also non-religious, and they are also willing to support us. The fact that we are seeing these organizations organizing humanist parties and festivals is also a good step forward, because eventually people are going to emulate from that, and they're going to see, okay, so a humanist ceremony is not demonic after all. We can have it, because it's just the bad impression that people have. But we are really trying, and we hope in the coming few years, then we are going to have humanist ceremonies at a different level. Because this year, I'm expecting to, if things go well, I'm expecting to officiate around 2 ceremonies. One which I'm working on the legal framework, and then there is that for the launching of a secular organization. And we are hoping that it's going to show people that humanist ceremonies are worth to embrace. They are not as they think they are, because they are getting wrong perceptions about it. And this is being done by our religious leaders, because they know if people start embracing humanist ceremonies, then they're not going to have people in their churches. So the idea is to kill its emergence and then maintain the dominance. But we are working as a family, and as secularists here in Kenya, so that we see how best we are going to promote these ceremonies.
Thank you so much, Brian. I should just tell you that there is no easy path to success. Every path has its own thorns. So don't expect to have it an easy ride. And of course, I should also tell you that if someone opts for church, it means simply that person was not an atheist, that person was not a humanist at all. A humanist, an atheist will never opt for church. If you say he's going to go to the registrar, I understand. But if he's going to go before a priest because he wants to have the easy way out, I'll tell you that was not your client in the first place. That was just a perception this person had. If someone truly hates a religious ceremony, there is no way they are going to go to a church. Under what circumstances? They won't go there. They would rather go to a registrar because it's secular after all. So my encouragement to you is that we need to identify who are our clients in the first place, because maybe preaching to the wrong family, to the wrong category of people. And I believe that your clients are going to, first of all, come from within the membership of the secular community in Kenya. You may have 1 wedding, 2 weddings, 3 weddings, 4 weddings in a year. There may not be so many. You may have a secular ceremony, a secular funeral in a year or 2. But what I'm emphasizing tonight is that whatever function we have, we need to market it. We need to publicize it, because that one function like we had in Kenya, and we have seen the photos here, it has given encouragement for people who have been watching this show. They know it is possible. It was done before. We have done similar ceremonies in Uganda. And we have a website for ceremonies in Africa. I wish Dennis had put the website on the screen. We have a website where you can go, African Ceremonies, African Ceremonies, African Celebrants platform. We have a website. That website, if someone visits, is going to see who is who. Where are our celebrants in Africa? You will know the countries where they are. You will get their phone contacts. So all in all, we are saying celebrants are already trained in Africa. There are going to be challenges. I can assure you that even in England, as we said today, that is the website, www.africanhumancelebrants.com. That is the website for celebrants in Africa, not only Kenya, but in Africa. And I believe that our administrator will be able to load every profile, every phone number, every email and blog and whatever over a celebrant on this website. So when you visit this website, africanhumancelebrants.com, you are going to get celebrants across Africa. Now, welcome, Linda, my sister Linda. Welcome. And I should tell you, we were concluding, but now, and I know you had challenges with electricity in South Africa. We are going to simply have you on the show. You greet us, give us a few words, and then we see how to move forward. Welcome, Linda.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks. I'm so sorry I'm late. I'm going to apologize on behalf of the dishonorable President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, because of his mismanagement of the country's resources. We have our national electricity grid is about to collapse here in South Africa. We're going to be apparently having 2 weeks of no electricity whatsoever sometime. And we're in the middle of winter. Well, we're getting into winter months here now. There's been snow in South Africa this week in some of our Eastern Cape mountainous areas. And so it's the worst time of the year, actually, to have no electricity. But so I'm really sorry I'm late. I'm so glad to have Brian on the show this week because he's normally on the other side of the camera. And I was true to my word, I've worn my snake earrings tonight. Can you see them? Especially for you, Brian. Because I know that some little known fact that Brian really he loves snakes and things. So I had to wear my snake earrings. But it's great. I'm sorry, I will rewatch the show and catch up on everything. But it's just been great because this is something that is growing across Africa, are the movement away from the religious ceremonies. And I think it's going to be something that's really going to take off in the future. And it's very much going back to the way that ceremonies and important events were marked in a person's life before the advent of colonialism here and introduction of the churches. Were very much humanist ceremonies to mark marriages between people and the birth of a child and sort of rites of passage throughout life. So for us as Africans, it's nice to be going back to the more normal, natural, traditional way of doing things. And this is something that even religious people can do, especially like with marriage. Sometimes we often have the marriage of different religious backgrounds. You might have Muslims and Christians or Muslims and Hindus at a wedding, and it's always difficult with the guests that are different, have different religious beliefs. But humanist ceremonies for the birth of the baby and everything are inclusive of all communities and all religions and irreligious, which is what we are all working towards in Africa, is to have a secular Africa where people can believe what they want to believe and follow whatever religion, but it's like your football team, you don't expect everyone to support the same team as you. So I think it's really a great thing, and it's so nice to see that I think we also need to give it more publicity and speak more about these ceremonies, because a lot of people aren't aware that they actually can do something like this.
Yes. Linda, thank you so much. Linda is, of course, our co-host. You know her. Of course, she had challenges. I did inform the audience that you'll be coming a bit late because of the power outages in South Africa. Linda, now we have Brian there. Of course, now I know you know lots about ceremonies, of course, secular ceremonies. You have explained some of them. Will you please share with the audience your own perception, your understanding of secular ceremonies elsewhere beyond Africa, but also in Africa, and guide our audience on why they should actually embrace more of secular human ceremonies than any other ceremony? Yeah.
Well, I think because they are fully inclusive of all religions, and by having these ceremonies, I know there's often issues with couples if we talk about marriage ceremonies, which marry from different religious backgrounds and the way of doing things. This is a way of not maybe favouring the one side, but rather having it's a neutral ground for everybody and for the guests that are at the ceremony or at the christening, the blessing, or whatever they call it, of a baby's birth, and also for funerals. These are all important rites of passage in anybody's life, wherever you live in the world, whatever your religious background, whatever your culture. I think every single culture worldwide has their own form of celebrating these important events in a person's life, which is really birth, marriage, and death. I suppose birth and death are the two main ones, and the birth of a baby. The thing is too is that I know a lot of the ceremonies, the religious ceremonies, when you get married, the whole thing is about being blessed by God and having your union sort of marked in his eyes, and a blessing on the marriage, and lots of wishes for blessings for lots of children and for your family for you to have a long lasting and successful marriage. But the thing at the end of the day is, if we think of it, that's not down to any supernatural being. It's actually down to what work the two people involved put into the marriage. And all this thing about, God will bless you with children is also a lot of rubbish, because being able to have children is all down to biological factors, whether you have fertility issues or how quickly you can conceive a child. It's got nothing to do with any blessing from some supernatural being. And I think the more we have ceremonies like this that sort of normalize things, people might attend a humanist wedding ceremony where there is no blessing from God or whatever, and we'll see as the years go by that couple remain happily married and have lots of children and have a happy, healthy family, but yet they didn't get the blessing from God for that. The same as when a child is born. I actually think it's very, very wrong to baptize a child into a certain. You're taking that child, and they say we are all born atheists, we are all born without a God, and it's very much the country and the community and the family that we're born into that determines our religion. So your religion is assigned to you from birth. You never have a choice with that. And I just think that it's a wrong decision for parents to make, to take a child and to force that child from when they can't even really speak or think for themselves much, and sort of brand them in one kind of religion that they then raised in their whole life. Whereas with a humanist ceremony, it's about the practical things. It's about wishing for that child to have a good life, to do well in life, and that as well, especially with raising children, and especially how it's always been here in Africa, is that they say it takes a village to raise a child. It's the people that are important and influence that child's life, the way the parents, how stable the family is, how they raise the child, the siblings, the experiences they have in the community and their schooling, and that a child being successful in life is not due to any supernatural blessing. A child being protected by being baptized and having the holy water and all that is a lot of nonsense. I mean, let's just think of this in a practical form. Water can't bless. How is water going to protect you? Like putting holy water on a child, dunking a child. Some of these Catholic churches, they dunk the whole baby into water. It's terrible. And I mean, we know water is very symbolic in African traditional culture. Water is life, and water is symbolic. But I think just this taking of the holy water and putting it on a child's head, that's like evil ritualistic kind of stuff. I don't know if we think of it, but because we're brought up to think it's normal to take a tiny baby like a sacrifice to church and have this big pastor bless the child and dunk it in water and everything, it's very much bordering on weird ritualistic things, but because we were brought up to think that that's normal and it's done to us and to all the people around us, we accept it. But it's actually not. You know, if you look at it from an outsider's point of view, if you objectively, it's very, very wrong to take a tiny baby and to sort of mark them under some kind of cult, actually, and do all these ceremonies with the child. So it's just, we all know that as children will do well in life if they're raised in secure, stable communities and in families that love them and can provide for them, and it's got nothing to do with any blessing. I see in Nigeria as well, there's a big sort of trend now with very young children that are being seen to have some kind of a, like they as prophets or some kind of special blessing on them. And they're little kids that are you know, standing up in churches and giving testimonies and things. But this all starts with how the indoctrination from birth. And I just think that for any couple to begin a marriage with a humanist ceremony and then to continue their life on that principle when they have their children and to bring their children up in a secular environment is far more beneficial for a child than raising them in a church environment. And I just hope that the more that this happens, the more it can become normalized and people can start realizing that this is how things always were. It's not a piece of paper and vows that you say in front of some supernatural being that keeps a couple together. It's not prayers over a newborn child that keep that child safe. People need to just start thinking that the most practical way to do things is by going away from religion and going back to natural ways of doing things. Own history, that's the problem as well, you see.
That's quite lovely. And I'll take it back to Brian so you can come in. And you have extremely explained it very well, Linda. Thank you so much. Because what you have brought in is the negative aspect of indoctrination, which we didn't even look at. But that's very important because it is through ceremonies that many of us were put into religions where we belong to. Brian, I know it may be the same case with you, but I will give my own example that before I even understood the world, I was given a name through a Catholic ceremony. I was baptized. I was told I was a Catholic. So it means that religious ceremonies are used to indoctrinate, to brainwash millions of children in Africa, and in fact, they get trapped in those very religions. Now, by introducing secular ceremonies, by introducing religious and non-religious human ceremonies, we are helping society to purge off the indoctrination so that children grow up without having an attachment to churches, an attachment to mosques, because they know, oh, I was baptized in so and so, such and such a church. For example, I have not allowed my children to be baptized, I should tell you, Linda, in the way the church wanted them to do. Yes. Even when their mother is religious, I'm not religious. So I said, we need to have a compromise here. Let the children grow to a reasonable age. Then if they want to go to your church and get baptized, they'll go. But we give them names. My children have names, but they haven't been baptized because as a father, I stood my ground and said, you cannot take my children to your church to be baptized. If they are my children, we are going to have a middle ground here. We can give them the names, but let them grow up and decide if they want to belong to this particular church or if they want to be non-religious like myself. So, because I know that the church, I know that the mosque is a breeding ground for indoctrination, for brainwashing of our children that turn out to be adults that cannot think beyond religion. Brian, to bring you back into this conversation as our main guest, you have had Linda, you have had my perspective. What do you think about the relevance of these ceremonies towards empowering people in Africa. What do you think about it?
I think humanist ceremonies play a very big role into also creating a diverse and an inclusive society.
Let's have a
in
picture
Africa.
of Brian more on the screen than the wedding picture, please. Let us have Brian on the screen.
What I'm saying is this. I think that humanist ceremonies are playing a very big role towards opening up our society into a more inclusive society that had before. Because you see, these ceremonies are open to everyone. They're also part in building a community, because these ceremonies bring people together from different religious backgrounds, religious beliefs, cultures, and so on. And while at these ceremonies, they are able to interact, and they're able to, there's that sense of belonging that comes out of it. And if we keep on advocating for this ceremony, then we are going to have so many people coming together. And when people come together, people exchange their different perspectives on different things. And through this interaction, then people are able to open up to different opinions, whether it's on belief or political point of views. And eventually, we're going to see people embracing it. People are going to embrace reason, empathy, and so on. Because the mingling of these people together is going to bring out something. Unlike when we will only have people from a specific religious belief put together, and then nothing is going to come out of there. But if you're going to have people from different religious backgrounds coming together, I'm also sure that, Kato, before you decided that you want to be an atheist and a humanist, you met somebody who inspired you and changed your perception about different things. And this is exactly what humanist ceremonies are doing. Because if I'm going to officiate a ceremony in Nairobi, and there are people who are invited there, because our ceremonies are not limited to specific people. Everyone is going to come there. And the moment people see how we are doing these things, they are going to be more skeptical about these ceremonies, and they're going to try to find out more. What are these ceremonies? What are they standing for? On what foundations have humanist ceremonies been enacted? And in the process, people are going to learn something about humanism, and eventually it's going to change their perception about everything. And we're going to have a whole different society, unlike what we have today.
Sure.
Very true.
That's very true.
Thank you so much. Linda, back to you. Your concluding shots, Linda. We are going to close shortly.
Well, as Brian says as well, is that it is a way, because it's not often that two religions come together in an environment which is a sacred kind of ritual, kind of, which we would now term a religious situation, like in a church for a wedding or whatever. So this is, as Brian says, a time when you mark important passages through a person's life, where with humanist ceremonies, you have people of all religions thrown together that wouldn't normally be together. And it is a good time. It's normally a time of celebration, and there's parties and that afterwards, where people can actually connect and see. And I think with us as atheists, there's a lot of misconception out there that we are like devil worshippers and we into all these weird sacrifice things and everything, because people get mixed up. And people often say, it's once that if I'm out in communities working and doing things and people say, oh, you're such a good Christian, and I say, no, I'm not a Christian, I don't believe in any of that stuff. They say, but I can't believe that you're an atheist. So it's, people normalize it. We're just normal people, it's just think rationally about things. And it's by getting out there more often. This is why I also believe, as an atheist, I work with Christians, Muslims, Hindus, people in all communities with human rights issues. I'm not exclusive. And that is the way that we start to change people's perception of things, where they can see that it's a very inclusive way of living, and it's a way of accepting and appreciating everybody for who they are as people. And it's not religion is not what makes a person a good or a bad person. So I think that this is just, it's a really good step in the right direction towards going back to traditional ways of doing things and how the ancestors did it as well. And it's because of them that we're all here today. So, you know, they did have things right then, and excluding someone from a whole community of people by branding them at birth as being either a Christian or a Muslim or Hindu or whatever, it's immediately putting segregation between groups of people. You're born and those walls are put up that exclude you. I am a Christian, you are Muslim. It's not right. And I just think, especially with the birth of children into the world, our new generations that are going to do better and hopefully achieve a lot more than we've been able to, that we really need to look at this from that perspective. So we need to write more about it as well and get it out there more, I think, Kato, as well.
Yeah, Linda, Brian, someone here sent us a message on our screen, in our chat room. Kat, the humanist, says people love ceremonies and reasons to celebrate. Throughout history, groups have adopted other groups' celebrations. Christianity is an example of that with their holidays. Thank you, Kat, the humanist, for that lovely feedback. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, we have so many people watching this show. People are giving us feedback. Thank you. Keep going strong. Brian, as we conclude once again, I would like you to give us your parting shot now about ceremonies in Kenya generally and way forward.
From where I stand, I still believe that humanist ceremonies have so much to impart and to inform our cultural, religious traditions here in Africa. And I think people should now start looking at these ceremonies as an alternative to what we've used to have before, because these ceremonies, they impart so much, they inform so much, and what you'll realize is that everything that is done in the humanist ceremony has a significance to human value, starting from its inclusive nature, starting from its empathy, because even as a celebrant, as you're trying to write that script, you're trying to put yourself in the story of this person or these individuals that you're writing to. So people should emulate what humanist ceremonies are built on. And we should try to practically put whatever it's there in the modern society, because if we all decide to follow what's there in these ceremonies, then definitely we are going to have a better world, a world that is informed based on reason and not just superstitious beliefs. Because one of the things that humanist ceremonies are trying to show us is that it's the human being that matters more than the culture, because everything we are doing is centered on you, not your culture or your traditions. It's all about you. So if people can just try to pick up the slight message that's coming out of these ceremonies, then we're going to have a whole different conversation in the coming years. And going forward, I think we should be advocating more for humanist ceremonies, because these ceremonies, they provide opportunities for people from different religious backgrounds, cultural backgrounds to meet and interact. And that way we are going to change the perception of how people see things and how people look at things from different point of views.
That's a great one. And I want to just give you one highlight before Linda closes this show. That imagine I've come across situations where a young man is being stopped from marrying another lady, a lady of his choice, because they don't belong to the same religion. He is Catholic, the lady is Muslim. They cannot be allowed to marry because the Muslim family has said you will never marry an infidel. You will never marry someone who is not religious, who is not Muslim. Now, a human ceremony, if these people denounce their religions and say, let us be humans, let us be us, we are going to have a ceremony for them, because they are going to say, I'm not Muslim, I'm not Catholic, I am me. I'm a human being. And then a humanist ceremony becomes lovely. Linda, you're going to be closing this show. Back to you as we say bye-bye.
Yes, thank you. Thanks. And I'm sorry once again that I was late. That's great. It's really nice. And I'm glad we've had this show, and we need to carry on with shows like this in the future. I know Brian he had some new books that he's writing, that he's going to be publishing a series of books that we're all looking forward to. And I'm sure that in some of the books he will be covering, touching on things like this. So that's really great. So thank you. And to all of you who can get hold of Brian we're going to put a link maybe under the video to his page and his contacts, so that you can contact him. Anyone in Kenya or anybody in other countries that want to have ceremony done, Brian can always get hold of people on our groups who are performing, who are celebrants in other countries as well, and just to find out more about it. So there we go, brighterceremonies@gmail.com, and we'll put the links under the video as well. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you again next week at the same time, electricity permitting. I'll be on time, or not at all, but I'll definitely try and be on time next week. Super. Thanks so much, Brian. It's been lovely having you on the show on this side of the camera. And I got my 2 snake earrings out for you. So there you go. Thanks, Kato. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Bye-bye.